Hi and welcome to the newest segment in the MusicXperience podcast called Shorts. As those of you who read my blog know, this is not a new format but approached this time by sound, not text. So let's dive into it. On today's plate, 5 dishes of a few different palettes. I enjoy reading reviews while listening to an album, and it often causes me to want to write my own, as in this case. Given that this year I limited the releases to albums that have a lot of ratings and a high average, I assumed that each one would be an experience and leave me in deep thought. Unfortunately, I was sorely disappointed, as out of a dozen or so releases, barely a few caught my attention. Knocked Loose are presented as saviors of hardcore, a new brief in metal, and once again, which one is it? I really try to not approach with preconceptions, to give it a chance, to find those elements that make the listeners still give such bands a chance, and also they are in different varieties, actually the backbone of modern metal. And I just can't find that magic that is supposed to be behind such form of conducting music. Screamo is at its core some kind of complete joke. When you listen to the hardcore classics, the aggression came from the lyrics, formulated by throaty growls and pitbull aggressiveness. Gary's, on the other hand, sounds like a spoiled brat whose parents refused to buy chocolates at the supermarket. The climate presented on the album makes me think of emo kids who don't know how to hold a discussion and manifest all their needs by shouting, again, as if they haven't grown beyond the rebellion of a 3-year-old. The guitars are theoretically supposed to sound ambiguous, vague, and surprising at every turn, even math rock. But in the case of You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To, they simply create an incredibly unpleasant wall of sounds that have no specific purpose and neither indicate the guitarist's special technical talents nor create an eerie atmosphere. In addition, although, like most metalcore releases, theoretically we are dealing here with successive blows that do not give you a rest, in my opinion, you can at best lose the sense of differences between successive tracks. Suffocate, in its first impression, seemed to tear itself out of this matrix, but subsequent listens showed that it's still the same shit, and by no means in a gold paper. The best way to sum up this album is to say that Tuomas is an unfulfilled composer of film music, and this is heard all too clearly. Nightwish 2024. Let's try to record all of our most classic songs again, minimally changing the basics, add a tragic mix that will hide the vocalist behind a wall of instruments, because why hire a new vocalist and let her shine in the foreground in a band from which Tarja came? Nightwish is for me one of the most important bands, even the prototype of the symphonic metal trend, a reference and model for other bands. However, the personal changes that deprived them of first Tarja and then Marco, because Tuomas' ego did not allow him to have different visions of the band from the only right one, made his vision dominant, and it is devoid of virtuosity and ideas of its own, and worst of all, copies ideas from years ago. Just listen to The Children of Eta, which is a copy of Nemo in practice 1-to-1. And although in the music market there is no shortage of bands that create metal operas based on one man's ideas, such as Avantasia or Irion, Nightwish has never competed with them in this field. It seems that in the current situation the name Tuomas Holopainen Nightwish would be more appropriate, and in general it would be useful to describe this album, maybe something about the songs, so I'll just say rehash.
First we take
The very short, barely 20-minute EP is a very pleasant stop on the folk map of Europe. Rome doesn't reinvent the wheel on this one, classic guitar sounds, compositional epicness that, as usual, evokes the boards of a theater rather than a regular concert. Of course, thematically, the author's political beliefs, revolution and class struggle are strongly evident here, but turning a blind eye to this aspect, we get Jerome's excellent voice as usual, backed by soft, plinking backlinks, as in Todo Es Nada, or even war songs. Fierce Wittig, Berlin. However, I will agree with the accusations raised among listeners that Rome has lost a bit of its punch, and subsequent releases seems to move in a very safe bubble using tried and true patterns. listening to Cedar in 2024 may seem like a mistake, an unreasonable concept in the long run, or simply a waste of time. And in fact, Cedar is not a band that somehow particularly marked its place in the history of popular music, of course. Fake It has permanently entered the canon of songs that everyone has heard at least once, but is still a song from 17 years ago. Since then, the band has released several more albums, of which actually only Holding is in any way worth mentioning. The latest release simply gives us alternative rock grunge from under Seattle without any attempt to modernize or adapt to modern trends. However, one cannot conclude from this album that anyone still needs grunge in 2024. Subsequent tracks fly through the player only to disappear immediately into the fog of oblivion. Sean Morgan's vocals are still the same depressive, low singing, rarely broken by a hardcore beat. The guitars don't even try to pretend that they are not just his background. In addition, often hidden in the mix is an absurd way, so that you often get the impression of a veil superimposed on the whole background. Trying to find consistent and unambiguous information about this formation borders on the miraculous. Therefore, in my search for the meaning of this disc, I decided to focus on the genres it represents. That's how I discovered hyperpop. Per Wiki. Epitomizes an exaggerated, eclectic and self-referential approach to pop music and typically employs elements such as cheeky synth melodies, auto-tuned earworm vocals and excessive compression and distortion, as well as surreal or nostalgic references to 2000s internet culture and the Web 2.0 era. Common features include vocals that are heavily processed, metallic, melodic percussion sounds, pitch-shifted synthesizers, catchy choruses, short songs, and a glossy sweet aesthetic juxtaposed with lyrics full of anxiety. Okay, that sounds intriguing in the context of the description, but the presentation of Sampled Princess deviates from that standard. Yes, the form of delivery is compressed, processed, unnatural and breaks out of the norm, but I can't tell where, over the course of these 4 tracks, broken down into 34 minutes of music, I'm supposed to find the magic that distinguishes this genre from even the shoegaze that immediately comes to mind. I've long since stopped judging songs based off their length, but it's hard not to get the impression that this release lacked filler for such wide spaces. What is most memorable is the sound of the drums, which indeed stand out for their changes of tempo and mood. Each beat seems to flow out of the passion, but one can get past the fact that, being tacked into the mix in second or third position, they shouldn't come to the fore just because the other elements are so shallow and without flair. Thank you for today's episode, leave a like, subscribe and see you next time.